The child's scream cut through the throne room like a blade through silk. Queen Zirathel froze mid-gesture, her 4 crystalline eyes narrowing on the source of the disruption. The human delegation had been presenting their treaty proposal for precisely 14 minutes when the small form bolted from behind the diplomatic contingent, bare feet slapping against polished obsidian floors that had never known such chaos. "Mama!" The word tore from the child's throat, raw and desperate. The human ambassador went rigid. The woman beside him, translator perhaps, or aide, turned the color of ash. But neither moved toward the girl sprinting across 300 meters of sacred ground where even princes crawled. Zirathel's primary guards shifted into offensive positions without sound or signal, their plasma lances humming to life. The child couldn't have been more than 7 solar cycles old, her dark hair wild, her clothing stained with something that looked like engine grease. She ran with the single-minded determination of prey fleeing a predator, except she ran toward the humans, not away from them. "Mama, please." Tears streaked down her face. "Don't leave me." "I'll be good, I promise." The translator woman stepped forward then, arms outstretched, and Zirathel saw it. The microscopic hesitation, the way her fingers trembled before she caught them in fists. Recognition and denial warred across her features. "Stop." Ziratel's voice carried no volume, yet it silenced everything. The child stumbled to a halt 15 meters from the delegation, chest heaving, eyes wild with terror that no child should know. Behind her, a human male in maintenance coveralls appeared in the throne room's entrance, face flushed, hands empty and apologetic. "Forgiveness, Radiance," he gasped in broken Shurtal. "Girl, escape didn't mean be silent." Ziratel rose from her throne, her ceremonial robes cascading like liquid mercury. She descended the dais with measured steps, each footfall a deliberate choice. Her guards remained motionless, but their attention had shifted from the child to the translator woman who stood frozen as if her bones had turned to stone. The child was crying now, hopeless sobs that spoke of abandonment before it happened. She hugged herself, rocking slightly, and Ziratel recognized trauma when she witnessed it. The universe had taught her to read suffering in 1,000 species across 10,000 worlds. She stopped 3 meters from the girl, crouching with a grace that made her towering height less threatening. Up close she could see the bruises on the child's arms, old ones mostly healed, arranged in patterns that told stories of rough handling. Her clothes were clean but worn thin, patched in places with obvious care. Someone had braided her hair recently, though half of it had come loose during her desperate flight. "What is your name?" Zirathel asked in flawless English. The child hiccuped, wiping her nose on her sleeve. "Sarah. Sarah." The queen tested the human syllables. "You called for your mother." The girl's eyes darted to the translator woman, then back to Zirathel. Fresh tears spilled over. "She said she had to go. That important people needed her, and I had to stay behind. But she always comes back before, and this time she said, her voice broke into incoherent sobbing. Zirathel looked up at the delegation. The ambassador maintained his diplomatic composure, but sweat beaded on his forehead. The translator woman stared at the floor, jaw clenched so tight Zirathel could see the muscle jumping beneath her skin. "Who is this child's guardian?" The queen's question hung in the air like an executioner's blade. Silence stretched for 5 heartbeats. 10, 15. The woman finally raised her head. She was, I found her, Radiance, on station terminus 7. Her mother was dead. Plague. I brought her with me because there was no one else, and I thought, she swallowed hard, I thought I could manage both duties. You thought incorrectly. The words fell like stones. Zirathel watched the woman flinch, watched her hands curl into fists at her sides. But still she didn't move towards Sarah, didn't offer comfort or denial. "What is your name?" Zirathel asked. "Rebecca Chen, xenolinguistic specialist assigned to the Earth Diplomatic Corps." Dr. Chen. Zirathel straightened, her full height casting shadows across them both. "You attempted to bring an unregistered dependent to a summit negotiation. You concealed her existence from protocol officers. You intended to leave her in the care of maintenance staff while conducting planetary treaty discussions." She paused, letting each accusation settle. "Explain." Rebecca's composure cracked like a dam under pressure. There was no one else. "The orphanages on Terminus. 7 were selling children to labor contractors. I saw it happen. I witnessed it with my own eyes, and I couldn't..." Her voice broke. "I couldn't leave her there. I couldn't. Sarah had stopped crying now, watching the exchange with huge, frightened eyes. Zirathel studied them both. The child desperate for a mother who wouldn't claim her, and the woman desperate to be anything except what the child needed. Then she made a choice that would echo across diplomatic channels for decades. "This summit is suspended," she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the throne room. "Chen, Ambassador Mitchell, you will remain here. The rest of your delegation is dismissed." Guards clear the room. The chamber emptied in perfect silence, leaving only Zirathel, her 2 personal guards, the ambassador, the translator, and one small girl whose whole world balanced on the edge of a knife. The queen looked at Rebecca Chen and saw the weight of an impossible choice crushing her shoulders. She looked at Sarah and saw the desperate hope that love might matter more than convenience. And she remembered why she had built an empire on principles instead of expedience. "Dr. Mary, Chen," she said softly. "Tell me why you believe this summit was more important than the child in front of you." The translator opened her mouth, closed it, and finally whispered, "Because I thought I could save millions by helping negotiate this peace. Because I'm the only human who speaks all 17 Ziratal dialects fluently. Because they said if I didn't come, the treaty would fail and the border conflicts would escalate into full war." She finally looked at Sarah, and pain cracked her professional mask. "Because I thought one child's fear couldn't outweigh billions of lives? And yet," Zirathel observed, "she followed you here." Sarah took a tentative step forward, her small hand reaching toward Rebecca. "I just want you to come home," she whispered. "I don't need a mama who saves worlds. I just need you." Rebecca's face crumpled. She dropped to her knees, arms opening, and Sarah crashed into her with enough force to rock them both backward. The child buried her face in Rebecca's shoulder, and the woman who could speak 17 alien languages fluently could only manage broken human words. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry." Ziratel let them hold each other for precisely 30 seconds before speaking again. "Ambassador Mitchell, what are Earth's protocols regarding diplomatic personnel with dependent children?" The ambassador cleared his throat. "They're discouraged from high-level negotiations, Your Radiance. Too many potential complications. Dr. Chen submitted her candidacy as a single individual with no dependents. She would have been rejected otherwise." He paused. "The girl's presence here is a severe breach of protocol." "I see." Zirathel clasped her lower hands behind her back, a gesture that among her people signaled deep contemplation. "And you knew of this deception?" "No, Radiance. I was informed that Dr. Chen required accommodation with adjacent quarters for a personal assistant." I assumed she meant a professional colleague. Zirathel turned her attention back to the woman still kneeling on her throne room floor, clutching a child like a lifeline. "Chen, how long has this girl been in your care?" Rebecca looked up, face streaked with tears. 8 months, Radiance. Since the terminus, 8 months during which you concealed her existence from your superiors, transported her across 3 sectors, and maintained the fiction that you were unencumbered by familial obligations. The Queen's tone remained neutral, analytical. "That requires considerable deception." "Yes, Radiance. It also requires considerable dedication." Ziratel moved closer, her shadow falling across them both. "The orphanages you mentioned. What would have happened to Sarah if you had followed proper protocol and reported her status?" Rebecca's arms tightened around the child. "Labor contractor would have purchased her contract. She would have been shipped to the mining colonies on Helios. 3. Children her age usually last about 3 years in the lithium extraction sites before respiratory failure." Her voice hardened. "Those are the official Earth government statistics, Radiance. Not speculation." Sarah pressed closer to Rebecca, small hands fisting in the woman's jacket. "Don't let them take me," she whimpered. "Please." "I won't," Rebecca said, then looked up at Ziratel with something like defiance breaking through the fear. "I know I violated protocol, I know I deceived my superiors, and risked this entire summit. But I couldn't. I wouldn't turn her over to that system. They would have killed her slowly and called it economic development." Zirathel studied them in silence. Her species had evolved from hive-minded insects who had slowly developed individual consciousness while retaining collective memory. She could access the experiences of 10,000 queens who had ruled before her, their wisdom crystallized into instinct. She knew what most of them would advise, and she knew why they would be wrong. "Sarah," she said gently, "do you know what Dr. Chen does?" The child peeked out from Rebecca's shoulder, eyes red and swollen.
She talks to aliens. She makes words mean the same thing in different languages.
She does more than that. She prevents wars. Her work here could save billions of lives across both our territories. Ziratel crouched again, bringing herself to the child's eye level. Do you understand that? Sarah nodded slowly. And yet you ran into my throne room, broke protocols that have stood for 6,000 years, and demanded she stay with you instead. The queen tilted her head, a gesture of curiosity. Why? Because, Sarah said simply, she's my mama, and I love her. And she makes me feel safe, and nobody ever did that before except her. Tears started again, but her voice stayed steady. I know that's not as important as billions of people, but it's important to me. And maybe if people like you saved people like me, there wouldn't be so many wars anyway. The throne room fell absolutely silent. Ziratel felt something shift in her chest, the same instinct that had made her spare a defeated enemy general who'd used his body to shield his fallen soldiers, the same impulse that had driven her to rebuild conquered worlds instead of stripping them for resources, the thing that made her a queen instead of just a ruler. She straightened and turned to Ambassador Mitchell. Your government places regulations above compassion.
They would punish
Chen for saving a child while rewarding her for abandoning that same child to serve political purposes. Is this an accurate assessment? Mitchell shifted uncomfortably. Radiance, our protocols exist to maintain professional standards and prevent conflicts of interest. Answer the question. The ambassador swallowed. Yes, Radiance. That's accurate. Ziratel returned to her throne and sat, the weight of authority settling around her like a cloak. Then I will offer your government a choice. You may retain Dr. Chen as your translator and diplomat, with the understanding that Sarah will accompany her to all negotiations, be provided full security clearance, and be treated as a dependent of a diplomatic official with all attending rights and protections. Or you may remove Dr. Chen from this summit and replace her with someone who speaks, 17 Ziratel dialects fluently? She let the impossibility of the second option hang in the air. There is no one else with Dr. Chen's qualifications, Mitchell admitted quietly. Then you have no choice at all. Ziratel leaned forward. But I do. I can refuse to negotiate with a government that treats its children as disposable resources. I can declare this summit void and recommend all Ziratel territories sever diplomatic contact with Earth until your species develops sufficient moral architecture to value individual lives over bureaucratic convenience. Mitchell went pale. Radiance, that would be catastrophic. The border disputes will continue, Ziratel agreed, and escalate, and cost lives, because I will not make treaties with civilizations built on child suffering. She gestured toward Sarah, still clinging to Rebecca. This girl represents everything your protocols have failed to protect. She is the measurement by which I will judge your species' worth. The queen stood again, moving with deliberate grace down the dais steps. She approached Rebecca and Sarah, stopping just beyond arm's reach. The guards tensed but didn't interfere. Dr. Chen, look at me. Rebecca raised her head, tears still wet on her cheeks. You made an impossible choice. You chose love over duty, individual compassion over collective good, and the immediate needs of one child over the theoretical needs of billions. Ziratel's voice softened. You acted like a mother, and that is exactly why I will trust you to negotiate this treaty. Rebecca blinked, confusion replacing fear. I don't understand, Radiance. A person who will sacrifice everything for one child understands the weight of individual life. A person who lies to power to protect the vulnerable understands what justice actually means. A person who breaks protocol to save someone with no political value has moral courage that cannot be taught or faked. Ziratel extended her primary right hand. Those are the qualities I need in a diplomat. Not linguistic fluency, not cultural expertise. Compassion that acts even when it costs everything. Rebecca stared at the offered hand, then slowly rose to her feet, lifting Sarah with her. The child wrapped her legs around Rebecca's waist, arms locked around her neck, refusing to be separated even for formal greetings. I accept your terms, Radiance, Rebecca said hoarsely. Sarah stays with me, no matter what. She stays with you, Ziratel confirmed, and Earth will revise its protocols to allow diplomatic personnel with dependents to serve at the highest levels, or I will not sign any treaty they propose. This is non-negotiable. Ambassador Mitchell stepped forward, desperation creasing his features. Radiance, I have no authority to agree to such restructuring of our entire diplomatic corps. Then find someone who does. The Queen's voice turned sharp as fractured crystal. You have 6 standard hours to consult with Earth. The summit will resume tomorrow at dawn, or it will be permanently dissolved. Choose wisely, Ambassador. Your entire species' relationship with the Zirtal Collective hinges on whether you value protocol more than the life of one 7-year-old girl. She turned her back on them, returning to her throne. Dismissed. Chen and Sarah may remain in the guest quarters, originally assigned to Dr. Chen. Guards will be posted to ensure their safety and comfort. All Earth delegation staff will treat them with appropriate respect, or answer to me personally. The ambassador bowed stiffly and retreated. Rebecca stood frozen, Sarah still clinging to her, both of them watching the Queen with expressions caught between gratitude and disbelief. Zirathel met Rebecca's eyes across the distance. Why do you hesitate? Because, Rebecca said slowly, I don't understand why you're doing this. I broke your laws. I disrupted your summit. I brought chaos to your throne room. You could have me executed for less. Yes, Zirathel agreed. I could. But you asked me the wrong question, Dr. Chen. You should ask me what I saw when that child ran across my throne room screaming for her mother. Rebecca waited, Sarah's face pressed against her neck. I saw a child who believed love was worth fighting for. I saw a child who had been taught, by your actions, even if not your words, that she mattered enough to disrupt the universe itself. The Queen's voice dropped to barely a whisper. I saw the future of human civilization, and I chose to bet on her courage rather than your government's bureaucracy. Sarah lifted her head slightly, looking at Zirathel with huge, dark eyes. You are very brave, the Queen told her, and you taught me something today about human hearts that no diplomat ever could. What did I teach you? Sarah asked, voice small but curious. That your species has not yet destroyed the capacity to love individual lives more than abstract principles. That means there is hope for you. Zirathel smiled, a complex expression that involved all 4 eyes shifting into warmer colors. Go rest, Sarah. Tomorrow you will attend your first interstellar treaty negotiation. Try not to disrupt any more throne rooms. Sarah almost smiled. I'll try. Rebecca carried her toward the doors but paused before exiting. Radiance? Thank you. For seeing her. For choosing her. For... Her voice broke. For being better than we are? I am not better, Zirathel corrected gently. I simply remember what matters.
The species forgets too easily.
She gestured toward the child in Rebecca's arms. Don't let them make you forget again. They left, Sarah's small hand waving goodbye over Rebecca's shoulder. Zirathel sat alone in her throne room, guards standing silent vigil, and contemplated the gamble she'd just made. The collective memory of previous queens whispered warnings about emotional decisions and the dangers of precedent. But another memory rose louder, her own childhood, when her mother queen had chosen to spare a defeated rival's offspring instead of following tradition and executing all potential threats. That spared child had grown to become Zirathel's most trusted advisor and closest friend. Sometimes mercy built stronger foundations than protocol ever could. She touched the communicator embedded in her throne's armrest. Contact the Zirtal High Council. Inform them I am establishing new diplomatic standards regarding human interactions. Details to follow. The response came immediately. By your will, Radiance? Zirathel closed all 4 eyes and allowed herself a moment of doubt. Had she just sacrificed billions of lives for one child's tears? Or had she found the leverage needed to reshape humanity's priorities before their collective callousness destroyed any chance at lasting peace? In 6 hours, she would learn which path her choice had opened. But in that moment, she knew only one thing with certainty. Sarah's courage had exposed the cracks in Earth's moral foundation, and Zirathel had chosen to be the hammer that either shattered it completely or rebuilt it into something stronger. The future would reveal which outcome her gamble achieved. The 6 hours passed in tense silence across the diplomatic quarter. Rebecca sat in her assigned chambers, Sarah asleep in her arms, and stared at the communication panel that remained ominously dark. Earth had received the Queen's ultimatum. Earth had not responded. She studied Sarah's face in the dim light, features relaxed in sleep, the first peaceful rest the child had managed since they'd arrived on Zirtal Prime. Rebecca had lied to herself for 8 months, claiming she was protecting Sarah while secretly resenting the burden, the limitations, the constant weight of responsibility for a life that wasn't supposed to be hers. Tonight, holding the sleeping child who'd been brave enough to fight for love when Rebecca herself had tried to run from it, she finally understood what she'd almost destroyed. A soft chime announced a visitor. Rebecca tensed, arms tightening around Sarah, but the child only murmured and burrowed closer without waking.
"Enter," Rebecca said quietly.
Ambassador Mitchell stepped through the doorway, looking 10 years older than he had that morning. He carried a datapad and the haunted expression of someone who'd spent hours arguing with bureaucrats who held all the power and none of the wisdom.
"Dr. Chen."
He stopped a respectful distance away, glancing at the sleeping Sarah. "May I speak freely?" He sat heavily in the nearest chair. "Earth has responded to the Queen's ultimatum. They've agreed to revise diplomatic protocols to allow accredited personnel with dependents to serve at all levels, contingent on appropriate security arrangements." He paused. "You were right about the orphanages on Terminus." 7. 3 senators launched investigations after your report was finally reviewed. Turns out you weren't the only one who knew, just the only one who cared enough to act. Rebecca felt something crack inside her chest. And Sarah will be formally registered as your legal dependent under Earth jurisdiction with full diplomatic immunity and protections. The paperwork is being processed now. Mitchell's expression softened. "Dr. Chen, I owe you an apology. I knew the system was broken. I knew we prioritized politics over people. But I told myself that was the price of functioning government, that someone else would fix it. That it wasn't my responsibility. And now I've watched a 7-year-old girl teach a galactic empire something about courage that we'd forgotten entirely." He stood, moving toward the door. "The summit resumes at dawn. Her Radiance requests that Sarah attend the opening session. She believes the girl's presence will remind all parties what we're actually negotiating for." After he left, Rebecca held Sarah tighter, tears sliding silent down her cheeks. She tried to save the world while abandoning the child who needed her. She'd chosen abstract billions over the concrete weight of one girl's desperate love. She'd failed every test that mattered, and somehow Sarah had forgiven her anyway. The dawn came crystalline and cold, painting Zertal Prime's triple suns across a sky that looked like shattered glass. Rebecca walked toward the throne room with Sarah's hand clasped firmly in hers, the child dressed in clean clothes and braided hair, looking nervous but determined.
"What if I mess up?" Sarah whispered.
"You won't," Rebecca promised. "You just sit beside me and draw pictures or read. The Queen wants you there to remind everyone why we're working so hard, because of kids like me? Because of everyone like you? People who need protection instead of protocol. Love instead of regulations." Rebecca squeezed her hand gently. "You're important, Sarah. Not because of what you can do, but because of who you are." They entered the throne room to find it transformed. The austere space had been softened with seating areas, refreshment stations, and observation galleries where citizens could watch the proceedings. At the base of the dais, a small, cushioned seat had been positioned beside the human delegation's table, child-sized, with a desk surface perfect for drawing. Queen Zirathel stood at the center of it all, watching them enter with something that might have been approval glowing in her crystalline eyes. She nodded once to Sarah, who managed a small curtsy that she'd probably learned from entertainment vids. The negotiations began. Rebecca translated with fluency born from 8 years of study and 8 months of desperation to be perfect enough to justify her choices. She rendered complex Ziratal concepts into English with precision, cultural context into diplomatic clarity, and beside her, Sarah drew pictures of families holding hands beneath alien suns. The delegates argued over territorial boundaries, trade regulations, military protocols, and resource sharing. Complex issues that would reshape 2 civilizations' futures. Rebecca navigated linguistic minefields with practiced skill, and slowly, gradually, the sharp edges softened into potential compromise. During a recess, the Queen descended from her throne and approached Sarah directly. The child looked up from her drawing, uncertain but not afraid. "What are you creating?" Ziratel asked. Sarah held up the picture, crude but earnest, showing stick figures with too many arms beside stick figures with only 2, all connected in a chain. "It's us, after we stop fighting. Being friends. May I have this when you finish?" Sarah's eyes went wide. "You want my drawing? I want to remember why we gathered here. Your picture shows the truth more clearly than any treaty document." The Queen glanced at Rebecca. "Dr. Chen, your daughter is a skilled diplomat." The words hit like physical impact. "Your daughter. Not ward, not dependent, not charge. Daughter." Rebecca's hand found Sarah's shoulder, and the child leaned into the touch with absolute trust. "She's braver than I deserve, Radiance. Bravery is not about deserving. It is about choosing to act despite fear. Zirathel straightened. The summit will conclude tomorrow. Both sides have agreed in principle to the territorial framework. You should be proud, Dr. Chen. Your translation work has been exceptional, but her multiple eyes remained fixed on Sarah as she spoke. The second day brought final negotiations and the careful dance of treaty language. Rebecca translated until her throat burned, finding precise words for concepts that existed in one language but not another, building bridges between civilizations with nothing but vocabulary and will. Sarah sat beside her through it all, drawing picture after picture of peaceful futures she believed were possible. And in the end, when the treaty was signed and sealed with formal ceremony, Queen Zirathel did something unprecedented. She left her throne, descended to the floor, and knelt before Sarah with all the dignity of an empire, bowing to a single truth. "Sarah," she said formally, "you disrupted my throne room and violated 6,000 years of protocol. By rights, I should punish such transgression." Sarah's eyes went huge with sudden fear. "But instead," the queen continued, "I will thank you, because you reminded me that love which fights for individual lives is more valuable than any system that treats people as abstractions. You showed courage that most adults never find, and you gave me the leverage to demand better from your entire species." She extended her primary right hand. "On behalf of the Zirathel Collective, I offer you honorary citizenship and our eternal protection. Should you ever need sanctuary, our borders will open. Should you ever face danger, our fleet will defend you. This is my vow." Sarah looked at Rebecca, who nodded through tears. The child reached out and clasped the queen's hand with both of hers. "Thank you," Sarah whispered, "for saving my mama from being stupid about love." The throne room erupted in startled laughter, Shirtal harmonics mixing with human voices in spontaneous joy. Even the queen's crystalline features shifted into something approximating amusement. "Indeed," Zirathel agreed. "Sometimes we all need saving from our own stupidity." She stood, still holding Sarah's hand, and looked directly at Rebecca. "Dr. Chen, your government has requested you remain as permanent diplomatic liaison to the Zirathel Collective. The position comes with substantial resources, housing appropriate for family units, and educational facilities for dependents. Do you accept?" Rebecca pulled Sarah close, the child wrapping arms around her waist. She thought about the impossible choice she'd tried to make, the balance she'd attempted between love and duty, and realized there had never been a real conflict. Love was duty. Protecting Sarah was protecting the future. Choosing one child's heart was choosing to be worthy of saving billions. "I accept," she said, "on the condition that Sarah's voice matters in every decision we make going forward. She sees truth more clearly than any of us." "Agreed." The queen released Sarah's hand and returned to her throne. "This summit is concluded. The treaty stands. Peace between Earth and the Zirathel Collective is established." She paused, all four eyes gleaming, and let it be recorded that it was made possible by a child who chose love over silence, and by a mother who learned to choose love over everything else. The formal session ended. Delegates dispersed. But Sarah and Rebecca remained standing in the throne room where it had all begun, holding each other while alien suns painted rainbow light through crystal ceilings. "Are we really staying here?" Sarah asked. "Together?" "Together," Rebecca promised. "Forever. I'm never leaving you again, never choosing anything over you. You're my daughter, Sarah, not because of paperwork or protocol, but because you chose me when I was too scared to choose you back. And I will spend the rest of my life earning that gift." Sarah hugged her tighter. "You already earned it. You came back when I called. That's all I needed." They left the throne room hand in hand, walking into a future that had been rewritten by one girl's courage and one woman's choice to finally let love be enough. Behind them, Queen Jiradak watched from her throne, Sarah's drawing clutched in her primary right hand. The crude stick figures grinned up at her with permanent marker smiles, promising peace built on something stronger than treaties, built on the simple radical act of choosing love when the universe demanded sacrifice instead. She placed the drawing in the archive of significant moments, where it would be preserved for 10,000 years, alongside battle victories and scientific breakthroughs, and the founding documents of empires, a child's drawing of hands holding hands beneath alien suns. The moment when two species learned what actually mattered. And the queen who'd bet an empire on the courage of a 7-year-old girl who understood something that adults had forgotten, that love which fights for individual lives can reshape entire civilizations. The archive sealed shut, preserving Sarah's truth for future generations. Outside, Rebecca and Sarah walked through gardens that bloomed with flowers from 100 conquered worlds, each one spared because a queen had remembered mercy. They would build their life here, among aliens who valued courage over protocol and truth over convenience. They would translate not just languages, but the fundamental grammar of compassion that connected all sentient beings beneath their differences. And Sarah would grow up knowing that she mattered, not because of what she could do or who she might become, but because a queen had seen her tears and chosen love instead of expedience. Because sometimes the most important treaties aren't written in diplomatic chambers. They're written in the moment. A child runs screaming for love, and an empire chooses to honor that courage instead of silence it. That night, as Sarah slept peacefully in her new room with windows overlooking 3 moons, Rebecca stood on the balcony and looked up at stars that stretched across infinity. Somewhere out there, other children needed saving. Other systems needed breaking. Other empires needed reminding that individual lives mattered more than abstract principles. She touched the diplomatic credentials newly issued in her name, with Sarah listed officially as her daughter. Tomorrow they would start building a better universe. Tonight, love had been enough. And that was everything.